Pleasure to welcome the Reverend John Fetty from the Assembly of God Church. John's been in Pierce since 1988. He's a native of Owatonna, Minnesota. He's going to lead us in prayer. And then our page is Matthew Rounds. He's from Pierre, and despite what most of you might think, he assured me he bears no relation to the good representative sitting over here to my left.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we have come to you in the past because we know you are the giver of all that is good and perfect. You give wisdom when we need it and peace when we need it. Be with us today as we conduct the affairs set before us. Be with each family represented here. And Father, we also ask that you be with our military and grant them safety, but Lord, grant their leaders wisdom. Now, Father, we look forward to the answers to our prayers. For this I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Allers, Anderson, Bartels, Barthel, Bartling, Beal, Bordeaux, Bruner, Campbell, Carson, Chase, Clark, Konzik, Gennert, Diedrich, DeSanto, Duval, Freimuller, Glanzer, Goodwin, Gosh, Greenfield, Lana, Haugard, Hawley, Heinemann, Holmes, Howard, Hunhoff, Jameson, Jensen, Kevin, Johns, Johnson, Kaiser, Carr, Ketwig, Lake, Latterell, Lesmeister, Livermont, Lust, Marty, May, McClary, McPherson, Mills, Otten, Herman, Peterson, Kent, Peterson, Sioux, Pischke, Kwong, Rasmussen, Reed, Roden, Ring, Rounds, Rosem, Schaefer, Shanefish, Smith, Soley, Steinhauer, Stevens, Tolson, Turbeville, Wheezy, Willardson, Wismer, York, Zickman, Speaker Mickelson.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, there's a quorum present.
Very good. Approval of the journal.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Chief Clerk of the House has had under consideration the House Journal of the 9th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction. And we hereby move the adoption of the report. Respectfully submitted, G. Mark Nicholson, Chair.
Must be nice weather outside. Yeah, you did good. I was just trying to get him to quiet down. What's next? Oh, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Reports of standing committees.
The Committee on Government Operations and Audit respectfully reports that House Bill 1051 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Jean M. Hunhoff, Chair. The Committee on Health and Human Services respectfully reports that House Bill 1079 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Wayne H. Steinhauer, Chair. The Committee on Taxation respectfully reports that Senate Bill 57 do pass and be placed on the consent calendar. Respectfully submitted, Stephen G. Haugard, Chair. And the committee, also, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Transportation respectfully reports that House Bill 1080 do pass, House Bill 1008 do pass as amended, and House Bill 1066 do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Mary Duval, Chair.
Messages?
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to transmit herewith Senate Bill numbers 7, 8, 10, 11, 27, 35, 36, 37, 40, 52, 56, 58, 67, and 69, which have passed the Senate, and your favorable consideration is respectfully requested. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to transmit herewith Senate concurrent resolution numbers 2 and 3, which have been adopted by the Senate, and your concurrence is respectfully requested. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary.
Motions.
Yesterday, Speaker Mickelson announced his intention to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1029 lost. There being no objections, Representative Rounds moved that the House do now reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1029 lost.
Second. Discussion on that motion. Representative Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. During the course of session, you'll hear one of the members of this body always say, keep your eye on the ball. Yesterday, I dropped the ball, and I apologize. I'm going to ask for your consideration today to reconsider House Bill 1029, and for the reasons that, number one, we were short about 8 members yesterday. I think we only lost it by about a vote. Number two, we have a lot of new information on this bill. And number three, there is an amendment. And for those reasons, and the fact that I've been able to talk to a lot of you about this bill, I think we should reconsider it and move this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is Representative Rounds' motion to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1029 lost. All those members in favor of that motion shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk shall unlock the voting machine and the member shall proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Reed.
Personal privilege, please.
Granted.
Today on the floor, and thanks to all the legislators that agreed to have these young gentlemen sit beside him, I have a troop of Boy Scouts. These Scouts are here as they're working on their merit badge that's called Citizenship in the Nation. And earlier today, they visited a committee meeting to understand the process of committee, and they also had a chance to meet with the governor to talk about the executive branch, and now they're on the floor as we are disposing of bills. They'll also speak with the Chief Justice at the end of the day. So I would like the body to welcome the Scouts and then also their parents.
What troop are you guys from? 13. What town's that out of? 13. What happened to Troop 14? Do they still have Troop 14 in Brookings? You don't know. Why don't you come up here and help me a little bit today? Right there. You want to come on up here? James, come on up here. I'm going to need a little help. Okay. Madam, let's see. Representative Carr, May, Livermont, DeSanto, Hunoff. I think we're looking for you to vote.
Representative May.
Hang on a second. We're trying to get everyone to vote.
Representative Carr, Livermont, and May. May votes aye.
Who else are we waiting for? Livermont and Carr? Who's?
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 53, nay 11, and excused 6.
Representative Rounds' motion to reconsider the vote on House Bill 1029, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed.
Representative Rounds moved that House Bill 1029 be placed at the end of today's calendar of Tuesday, January 23rd, the 10th legislative day.
Second.
Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, turns out this is a roll call vote, because if it doesn't carry, it's final action. The question being Representative Rounds' motion that House Bill 1029 be placed on today's calendar. All those members in favor of that motion shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Yes, Representative Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Personal privilege.
Granted.
Colleagues, we have some special ladies with us today. They work with some of our most vulnerable and neediest children in the state. Above the speaker, you will see them sitting. They represent the South Dakota Association Head Start, as well as the South Dakota Association for the Education of Young Children. Would you please welcome them?
Thank you, Representative Holmes.
Representatives DeSanto, Freimuller, May, Peterson, Sue, and Schaefer. Move it to the calendar. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 57, nays 9, and excused 4.
Okay, Representative Rounds' motion that House Bill 1029 be placed on the bottom of today's calendar, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. All right. Still on resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution Number 1004, urging the governor to fuel the state fleet with premium E30 fuel. Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 2, endorsing the right to work provisions in the South Dakota Constitution and in the Labor Management Relations Act that prohibit forced union membership. It was read the first time and the Speaker waived the committee referral. And Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 3, committing the legislature and urging the governor, the Supreme Court, and the Attorney General to secure the blessings of life and liberty for South Dakota's posterity.
Consideration of committee reports.
Representative Quam moved that the report of the Standing Committee on State Affairs on House Bill 1102, as found on page 124 of the House Journal, be adopted.
All in favor of the Quam motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. First reading of House bills. Okay, the Speaker assigns to the Agricultural Committee House Bill 1130, to Joint Appropriations 1128, 1129, 1135, to Commerce 1121, 1125, 1127, and 1134, to Education 1122, To Judiciary, 1124, 1126, 1136, 1138, 1139. To Local Government, 1131, 1141, and 1142. To State Affairs, 1123, 1132, 1133, 1137, 1140, and 1144. To Taxation, 1143. And to Transportation, House Concurrent Resolution 1004. First reading of Senate bills. The Speaker assigns to Judiciary Senate Bill 67, to State Affairs Senate Bills 7, 8, 10, and 11, to Taxation 58, to Transportation 69, to Retirement Laws 35, 36, and 37. And the Speaker waives committee assignment on Senate Bills 27, 40, 52, and 56 pursuant to Joint Rule 6D1. Those have already been through joint appropriations. Consent calendar.
Representative Bartles requested that House Bill 1032 be removed from the consent calendar.
So granted.
House Bill 1031, an act to revise certain provisions and references regarding real estate licensing. House Bill 1086, an act to exempt certain assisted living facilities from the salon license requirement. House Bill 1087, an act to allow certain students to test for cosmetologist, esthetician, and nail technician licensures.
Any questions by any of the members on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before the body is adoption of today's consent calendar. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed shall vote no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine and the members shall proceed to vote.
Representative Bartles, Representative Ring. Representative Ring. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 66, excused 4.
The consent calendar, having received the majority vote of the members-elect, is hereby declared passed. Do it right after the passed. Yeah, that's fine. Second reading of House bills. There is no doctor of the day today because we had bad weather again. So stay healthy.
House Bill number 1033, an act to revise certain licensing renewal procedures for business insurance producers.
House Bill 1033, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks?
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Willitson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, it gives me pleasure today to bring, on behalf of the Division of Insurance, an agency bill. This bill adds a renewal requirement to the insurance code for business entities. Now, in South Dakota, in the world of insurance, it's primarily insurance agencies that operate under a structure of legal entity, like a corporation, a partnership, limited liability company, limited liability partnership, or other legally created entity. Previously, which means now up till today, these entities have been issued a license which goes on forever. It does not require them to provide any updated information or data to the Division of Insurance, including the contact information, their address, email, phone number, etc. The lack of updates creates a point of contact issues, including if these entities are still in existence and operating or whether they have merged with other agencies. The data on the Division of Insurance books for the business entities goes back to 1967, over 50 years. They have approximately 6,400 non-resident business entities, that are from out of state, and approximately 1,200 resident or in-state South Dakota business entities listed today. Now, this creates inefficiency for the Division of Insurance because they don't know which entities are still active and which ones are not. So this bill requires a biennial or every other year renewal, which is consistent with most states. South Dakota is one of 2 states that does not require this now. And it also requires them to pay a fee. $20 for in-state, $50 for non-residents. So what happens in the real world? Well, Grandma Susie passes away, and going through her things, her family finds a life insurance policy. Well, the life insurance policy was issued by a business entity in South Dakota in the early 1970s. So they attempt to contact this entity, but they cannot locate any contact information. So they go to the Division of Insurance and they say, how do we contact so we can get an agent so we can process our claim? Well, the Division of Insurance doesn't have that information either. Therein is the problem that House Bill 1033 attempts to solve. Because these entities would be required to update every 2 years, the Division of Insurance is going to have this information available. The bill also requires that each entity to designate an individual licensed insurance producer as the responsible party and the contact for the entity. This bill is supported by the industry. The insurance industry is okay with this. There was no opposition testimony in the committee. Last, I guess I'd like to say concerning the fee, we have a long-standing tradition in South Dakota that those that use the services pay the fees. And this is just another example of that, where these entities should pay the fees to help make our Division of Insurance more efficient. With that, I'd ask for your support of House Bill 1033, and Mr. Speaker, I'll stand by for questions.
Very good. Further remarks? House Bill 1033. Representative Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I've got a few concerns on this particular bill. I was one of the no votes, one of the 5 no votes in committee when it came towards the bill. And the idea behind it is it says 7,600 licenses out there right now at $20 a piece. At 50 out of state, we're looking at anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000 worth of fees, simply to try to clear up a book of some names that may or may not be out there. My other problem with it is we're already, as insurance agents, required to renew our licenses, renew our education requirements, whether you're out of state or in state there. So maybe there's a better way of going through that process to find out what companies the insured agents are working for and not having to spend this type of money. And then to add to it, once this thing's cleaned up, are we still going to be spending? I mean, let's take 10 years down the road and they find out that, okay, we've cut out 2,000 names, they're no longer there, this is great. 10 years down the road, we're still giving them anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000 simply to cross off 1 or 2 names a year. So I just think this is an overstep. I think there's probably some other opportunities that they can look into, some other ways that they can try to do this and clean up their books without having to raise an astronomical amount in fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. There's approximately, what did we talk about, 7,500 of these on the books. And they're estimating about half of these since 1967. Keep that in mind. None of these have been checked since 1967. Some of these have been out there for 50 years. A lot of these, up to half of these, are no longer in business, may have been bought out, sold out, just got out of the business. So we're going to be down, when this is all said and done, cleaned up about 4,000. And we had talked about the possibility of a sunset on this, after or taking away the fee altogether. If we take away the fee, yeah, we can have the general fund, a little bit of money here and there to cover the expense, off the taxpayers to send these mailings and to do this cleanup. That's fine. Or we can just make it $20 across the board. The main thing is we need to clean these up. They haven't been touched since 1967. We have no idea how many are out there still doing business. Let's at least move this along so we can get the books cleaned up. The fee end of it will cover, yes, it will cover maybe even a little bit more than what the expenses are. $150,000, $60,000, I doubt it. Maybe closer to $50,000 to $80,000. Depends on how many they find. The main thing, we're not draining the general fund. We're not draining the taxpayers to do this. Keep that in mind when you press green. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Representative Johnson? No? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't hear any other opposition coming up, so I have to say something on this. If you recall, last week we talked about the Podiatry Association, and there was a fee on that also. But what I want to point out on that is that the podiatrists were assessing themselves this fee. Their fee was created by their membership, it was collected by their membership, and it was spent by their membership. This one is different today. What you have here today is a fee that's being assessed by a state agency, by a bureaucracy. I don't think that frankly, I just don't think that they need a fee. I don't think they've got a job to do. I think they can do it with what they've got intact. I haven't been provided justification that the Division of Insurance needs to assess anything for a job that they should already be doing. And then I also heard another argument that disturbs me a little bit, and that was that, well, if Mr. Jones is paying the fee, well, then Mr. Smith should be paying the fee too, because that's parity. Well, I guess my idea of parity when it comes to financing a bureaucracy is cut fees for everybody. That way we're all paying the same, right? $0 for Mr. Smith and $0 for Mr. Jones. I don't think this has been justified, and I don't believe we need to assess a fee to a bureaucracy. Well, I should say to the Division of Insurance. I haven't seen any justification for raising their rates for doing a job that they're supposed to be doing anyway. I'd say this is a red.
Further remarks? Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess my comments will be more to the standard of licensure. Look beyond the fee for a moment. These entities have had a perpetual license to operate and do business. Who gets to do that? I don't know of any operation similar to the business of selling insurance that gets to have a perpetual license. You might be able to get historical license plates on your vehicle. That's a little different in my opinion. We need to know who's out there operating, who's doing business in the state. I think that's a very reasonable expectation for we as a state and the Division of Insurance and the management of supervision of the Division of Insurance, and I would urge you to vote green on this bill. Thank you.
Further remarks? Mr. Speaker. Anyone wish to speak for a first time before Representative Willitson closes the debate? Representative Willitson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the comments from the good representative from Canton. He hit the nail exactly on the head. The primary purpose of this bill is to get these entities to report on a biannual basis to the Division of Insurance so that they know that they exist or not, so that they can do the proper procedures when they're asked by a member of the public to serve the purposes of their policies. Keep in mind, there was no opposing testimony in committee. There was no insurance agency that's incorporated that came to the committee and said, no, this isn't fair. We don't want to pay this $20 fee. The reason for that is because they're in favor of it. They want the Division of Insurance to be able to operate in an efficient manner. This is one of the tools that we're giving them to help them be more efficient. So please vote green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're welcome. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1033. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. This is a 2/3 vote. Due to the fees going to something other than the general fund. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 43, nays 23, and excused 4.
Well, House Bill 1033, having failed to receive the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared failed. A 2/3 vote. Yes, Representative Willitson. Notice. We'll take that as a notice of intent to reconsider. I think that notice has been received. And we'll consider that tomorrow, on tomorrow's calendar as a motion. Okay, very good.
House Bill 1084, an act to revise certain provisions regarding garnishment disclosure forms.
House Bill 1084, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment.
Representative Shane Fish, is that 1084 WA?
It is.
Okay, has it been distributed?
It has.
Do you wish to move it at this time?
I do.
Second? Okay, we'll grant you permission to speak to the amendment and the bill.
Yeah, thank you. HB 1084 makes changes to the garnishment disclosure form. Form lists examples that are used to calculate disposable earnings. One of those examples is child support. However, disposable earnings is your income minus deductions required by law, such as Social Security and income tax withholding. That's generally the same for most people. Since payroll standards do not include child support in disposable earnings, it does not belong in that particular line. The bill would take child support out of that line, and on page 4, we are adding examples of adverse interest, which includes child support, tax levies, and creditor garnishments. After receiving a question from a fellow CPA and representative from Marshall County and discussing it with the payroll manager I worked with on this bill, we decided it was best that federal wage garnishments would be a better term than tax levies. Wage garnishments would include things by the IRS on income tax or loans made to federal agencies such as student loans. So with that, this bill will make the form consistent with the definition of disposable earnings, provide end users such as employers and business owners with more clarification when filling out these forms. It'll clean up the language and make it easier to understand. Ask for your favorable support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is adoption of Amendment 1084 WA. All those members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries. We're now on 1084 as amended. Are there any further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is adoption of House Bill 1084 as amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine, and the member shall proceed to vote. What do you think? Is it all right up here?
Ladero votes aye. Representatives Anderson, Carr, Rosem. Representative Anderson. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 65 and excused 5.
House Bill 1084, as amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1009, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the administration of benefits provided to veterans.
House Bill 1009, having received its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Yes, Representative DeSano.
Sure. House Bill 1009 is a department bill brought to us by Veteran Affairs. Currently in South Dakota, an honorably discharged veteran in South Dakota is eligible to have a special veteran designation on their driver's license or their non-driver ID card. When the bill was originally written, Form 22 or NGB 22 was not included as an acceptable form that could be shown at the DMV in order to receive this designation on your driver's license. This bill is merely clarifying that that form is an acceptable form to be provided at the DMV in order to get that designation on the card. This had originally been on consent. It was removed off of the consent calendar due to some concerns regarding, are we changing who's eligible? This bill does not in any way change who's eligible for that designation. It just removes one step from the person having to do so.
Thank you, Representative DeSano. Further remarks? Yes, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to just explain. I was the one who pulled it from consent, and I'm going to explain why. Traditionally and currently at the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, a veteran is an active duty person, someone who has served on active duty for a certain period of time. Traditionally, National Guardsmen are not considered technically a veteran. They are not at the federal level unless they are called to active duty and serve on active duty for a certain period of time. What I was unaware of and why I was so confused was that several years ago, there was a change made in how South Dakota defines veteran. So in South Dakota, we include a National Guardsman. So that was something that was fought on this floor several years ago. It is now in statute that we consider National Guardsmen as well. That's not the case at the federal level, thus my confusion. But since we have made that change in statute for our state, this is simply fixing the language for the driver's license. So.
Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1009. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 66, excused 4.
House Bill 1009, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1058, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the employment of the superintendent of the State School for the Deaf and the South Dakota School for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
House Bill 1058, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Yeah, Representative Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and fellow legislators, as you know, in the past, we had a school for the deaf and a separate school for the blind and visually impaired. Each was in its own location. Each had its own superintendent. The current statute, which was in existence at that time, requires that the superintendent of the school for the deaf, and I quote, shall be trained in the education of the deaf and skilled in the use of sign language. The statute for the school for the blind has no similar sort of specific requirement. A few years ago, in response to some budget cut requirements, the regents combined the positions of the superintendents of the two schools and appointed a longtime faculty member and administrator of the school for the deaf who has led both schools for the last few years. This was a way of cutting administrative costs in order to preserve limited resources as much as possible for direct services to students. What this bill does is to bring the statute into line with that current practice. It removes the specific requirement about knowing sign language. That requirement, of course, made a lot of sense when we had a separate superintendent for the school for the deaf. But if we're going to have a combined superintendent, it doesn't make so much sense for a person who leads both schools. The current bill specifies that the board may hire one person to serve as the superintendent of both the South Dakota School for the Blind and Visually Impaired and the State School for the Deaf. The person shall receive a single salary. This change treats both schools equally. Keeping the sign language requirement would automatically disqualify a blind applicant. With this change, the board could use a search committee with members representing constituents affected by the position. It would also allow the board to set expectations for a candidate who did not meet all the desired skills upon their being hired. And I believe there's an amendment to be brought at this point, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ring, thank you. Further remarks?
Permission to speak.
Representative Freimuller.
Yes.
Freimuller. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the amendment should all be on your desk, and after meeting with Mr.
Representative Freimuller?
Did I do something wrong again?
No, not really, but what we need to do is say I have an amendment.
Oh, I have an amendment.
Has it been distributed?
It has, except for to you. You had to come and get it.
Is that Amendment 1058 CD?
Yes, sir, it is.
Do you wish to move it at this time?
I would, yes, I would. If you,
Go ahead. Now you can talk about your amendment.
I just would like you to know I'm happy we can go through training together in this, so thank you very much for that opportunity. Okay. After meeting with Mr. Rush from the Board of Regents and Representative Les Meister and myself, and Mr. Holmes did get to, or Representative Holmes did get to see it today, we've come up with a compromise, as all of our emails were, we had numerous emails on this one. So what on line 1, or page 1, line 9, we're inserting the superintendent and the instructional staff shall have professional knowledge concerning the educational needs of students with sensory disabilities. Now, sensory disabilities combines the blind and the deaf. So that was the word, that was the verbiage that when we were working on it this weekend, that was kind of a consensus with both of them. That was what they had written to me. So, and then we're also doing it on page 2, line 2, so it's consistent with both. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Freimuller. Further remarks on Amendment 1058 CD? Representative Les Meister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just going to convey again what Representative previous speaking said. Mr. Rush was gracious enough to come forward. He pretty much wrote this amendment for us. He conveyed into it what we wanted to have. He conveyed his concerns to us. We struck some language back out that he wasn't comfortable with. I'm not going to stand here and say this is a friendly amendment without him saying that, but he did actually write this in LRC and give it to us. So I think it's a good amendment. I think it's a great start, and we need to let these people move forward and be able to start looking for the hiring process of the new superintendent of this school. So I hope you vote green on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the amendment? Representative, you want to talk on the amendment? Holmes? I'm going to go to Holmes first, and then we'll come back to you, Representative Ring. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did have an opportunity this morning to speak with Dr. Rush, and he gave me a heads up that this might be coming, and he was perfectly at ease with it, just so that you know it is a friendly amendment. And I appreciate the efforts of our two colleagues here in bringing this. I think it allays all the concerns that some people had, and the most important thing is we will have a superintendent in place who is qualified, and that will allow these children who are visually and hearing impaired to receive the kind of services they need. So I appreciate your favorable concern.
Thank you. Further remarks? We'll go ahead and let Representative Otten talk on the amendment. You on the amendment, Representative Otten?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm going to stand to support this amendment. I had concerns with the bills before. There's a lot of concern in the deaf community that by alleviating the need for them to have some knowledge in educating deaf children, that they were going to get left out. I'm going to give some full disclosure. My uncle is a graduate from the School for the Deaf, so was my wife's uncle, and I have plenty of constituents that way too. So I think this helps clear it up a little bit, although it's a little open-ended there as to what they're going to require out of this. I'd still like to have seen American Sign Language in there also, but this is a good step anyways, and I guess we'll have to see how the process plays out, but I support the amendment. Hope you do too.
Thank you. Representative Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to add, speaking to the amendment, that I talked to Dr. Rush also, and he told me I could call it a friendly amendment. So I hope everybody will certainly support the amendment.
Further remarks on Amendment 1058 CD? Seeing none, the question before the body is adoption of Amendment 1058 CD. All those members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're now back on 1058 as amended. Further remarks? Representative Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I would just rise in support of this bill. One thing to keep in mind as we've all gotten emails that would ask us to defeat this bill. The fact is that this is for a superintendent position, and as far as the deaf students go, there is no students at the deaf school. All these programs are taken care of out in the school districts, and so the daily interaction between the superintendent and students is not there. So I would just ask you to favorably consider this bill. I think it's a great money-saving measure, and one that they've been, since 2011, I think, using, and this just puts it in law, and just makes perfect sense. So I would ask you to vote yes.
Thank you. Further remarks? 1058 is amended. Representative Ring.
I would just second what Representative Bruner said, that things have changed in the last several years, and there is not as much direct contact between the superintendent and the students, particularly at the deaf school, since there really isn't a deaf school anymore, that the superintendent's position.
Nothing. That's a side joke, just with myself.
I didn't pick on you when you were in my class, Representative.
Oh. That wasn't about you. It was just about something completely different.
I would like to encourage everybody to support the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Seeing no further remarks on House Bill 1058 as amended, all those members in favor of House Bill 1058 as amended shall vote yes. All those members opposed shall vote no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine and the member shall proceed to vote. They got no school, but they got $10 million worth of land and buildings.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 64, excused 4.
House Bill 1058 is amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1016, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the authorization to provide post-secondary education.
House Bill 1016, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Brunner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I get started pitching the bill, I do have a voice amendment I'd like to make.
Very good. Would you make that at this time, Representative Brunner?
Yes. I move that on page 3, line 5 and 6, the term $2,500 be replaced with $250. I believe you have a copy up in front of you.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to restate it, make sure that we understand it here at the front desk, and here it is in writing. Yep, you're welcome. Line 5, page 3. Scratch 2005, and on line 6, scratch 100, and replace that with 250. Representative Brunner, go ahead.
I was just make a comment on the motion to amend. We amended it down severely in committee. It was originally $5,000 and $2,500 for the initial fee and then reauthorization. But as we, just a few minutes ago when I looked at the reinstatement fee, had not been included in that motion. We intended it to be, and in talking, I actually did talk to the Secretary of State's office, and they're fine with it. We just missed it, and this kind of clears that up.
You bet. Appreciate that. We're on the motion to amend. Voice amendment to change $2,050 to $250. Page 3, lines 5 and 6. Further remarks on that motion to amend? Seeing none, all in favor of Representative Brunner's motion to amend, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Now we're back on the bill as amended. Representative Brunner.
Yes, thank you. Well, House Bill 1016 was brought to the Education Committee by the Secretary of or the Office of Secretary of State, excuse me. Basically what it does is cleans up a long list of colleges from around the country that years ago were added to a list, and there's no mechanism to get them off the list. We don't know if they're still in business or whatever. This list does not include state institutions or other schools that have a brick and mortar presence in our state. If there are some on there that do, we'll follow up with a bill quickly to put them on this exemption list. Basically what this does is just cleanup and verification. There's somewhat over 250 schools, like I said, on this list. Allows the Secretary of State to contact them. If they want a presence in this state, they have to be certified and accredited. So it allows us to take those schools that don't wish to be or out of business or no longer interested in our state to be taken off the list and added, for a fee, put on the list. So originally, the fee was quite high. It kind of corresponded with some surrounding states, and we took it down to about 10% of what the original ask was from the Secretary's office, and they were fine with that. We just need some mechanism to move forward with cleaning up this list, and this does it. I would assume that as in future years, we figure out how long that list is going to be, we can adjust those fees downward probably. But for now, this is the language we'd like to move forward with, and would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bruner. Further remarks, House Bill 1016. Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a real issue with this. Part of the problem is they came in and they requested $5,000 to begin with. Now they're okay with $500. To me, that says this is just a fee to enact a fee. They probably don't need anything for this. It's probably 15 minutes worth of work. Now, I don't know what it is. If someone can answer that question, it's just a rhetorical question. Have they done a desk audit to figure out how much time it takes them to process whatever paperwork or check whatever list they have to check? How much time are they spending? How much does that cost? The good representative from Pierre has stated how, in South Dakota, we're okay generally with user fees. We're okay if we provide you with a service. It's okay if we charge you for that service, but the fee should be commensurate with the work involved. We do not overcharge. That becomes a tax. And I just have a real issue with this. Why not make it $50? I mean, really, how much time are they involved? I don't think they've thought about this. And just to charge an amount based on the fact that the surrounding states do it, that's not a good enough justification to do that. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Freimuller?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would agree, because if the whole reason of getting a fee is to find out if they're doing something here, why couldn't they pay it when they apply? If they're not going to fill out a form and submit some money, we'll just delete them off. Or why can't we just delete them all off now and then put it out there that it's now $250 or whatever it is if you want to apply to be accredited for post-secondary education. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone wish to speak for a first time before Representative Bruner speaks for a second time? Representative Howard, does anyone wish to speak for a first time before Representative Howard and then Representative Bruner speaks for a second time? All right, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One more thing I wanted to respond to. The comment was made that if we figure out that the fee's too high, we can always reduce it in the future. Everyone here knows that never happens. If we ever have too much money coming into a fund for a fee, what happens with it? It gets rolled into general funds or whatever. Fees never get reduced.
Representative Bruner, final remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I might add that fees do get reduced. In actuality, I would admit this came in with no fees, but there was no plan either. So we did reduce it by 90% actually in committee. And I feel that the Secretary of State's office does need something there to justify the paperwork. As soon as the governor signs this bill, if it gets that far, they will contact all these colleges. And it's a new form that we're actually setting up. And we want to make sure that that they're accredited also, not just a diploma mill, if you will be brought into South Dakota. The other thing they might look at is this was brought up to the Board of Regents, brought up to the Department of Education, where possibly an education bill like this maybe should be handled, or a list like this should be handled. There was no effort on the Board of Regents to put any effort into this. So it tells me it must cost something. There must be something involved. Department of Education wasn't interested in maintaining this list, so it fell to the Secretary of State's office. And there obviously must be some expense involved. Don't really know, because the surrounding states have complicated formulas. Some are way higher. There's one state that has nothing, like we have been. But we don't really know how much time that's going to take. So I would just ask that we pass the bill and move forward. It might be a rather short list once we get through notifying those schools and asking them to, to either send money or be left off the list. So with that, I would just ask you to pass the bill and recognizing that, yeah, we are raising fees. The other thing that I think we need to recognize is we don't know how much effort is going to be involved in this, or what it's going to take, but obviously we don't need to saddle our departments with more work than they'd be compensated for. When I might add that all of the schools that are exempt from this are South Dakota schools. The ones that are on the list are out-of-state schools with no brick and mortar, and so it's no in-state schools whatsoever that would be affected by this. So I just asked your affirmative vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is adoption of House Bill 1016 as amended. This is a simple majority vote. The fees go to the general fund. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Representative Beal votes aye. Representative Rounds votes aye. Representative Carr. That was a no. Yep. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Well, the good news is House Bill 1016 as amended, having received both the simple majority and the two-thirds vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1050, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the Prompt Payment Act.
House Bill 1050, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Haugard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill comes as a request from the Bureau of Administration in regard to fixing of interest rates. Their request initially was to drop the interest rates down as low as 4%, which was just a number pulled out of the air essentially, but instead it was amended in committee and it's come to the floor with revision to allow that rate to be tied to a Category B rate of interest that's established in SDCL 54-316. So at least it's tied to that chapter of the code that addresses interest rates. And it provides an opportunity to get issues resolved between the agency and those providing services to the state. It's a reasonable interest rate as opposed to dropping it too low. This still provides incentive for the state to resolve things and not let them remain pending. So I think it's an appropriate change to the law, and it still gives those that are providing services and billing for their services an opportunity to keep the pressure on the state to get their bills paid. So I'd ask the body to provide its affirmative vote on this measure.
Further remarks? House Bill 1050. See no further remarks. The question before the body is final adoption of House Bill 1050. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote.
Allers votes aye. Otten votes aye. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 66, excused 4.
House Bill 1050, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Representative Quam moved that House Bill 1024 be deferred to Wednesday, January 24th, 2018, the 11th legislative day.
All in favor of the Quam motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries.
House Bill 1100, an act to require a name be printed on public contracts.
House Bill 1100, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Wismer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk.
Very good. Is that Amendment 1100 WB?
Yes, it is.
Has it been distributed?
Yes, it has.
Do you wish to modify that amendment before we move it?
Yes.
Go ahead and describe your modification to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have given to the Speaker a copy of a hand-changed amendment. You all should have on your desks 1100 WB. However, I need to add one more item to that, and it will be exactly the same as the first line of the amendment, except for saying on page 1, line 4, it will say on page 1, line 11. And so in two places, on line 4 and line 11 of the printed bill, delete person and insert individual.
Very good. Everyone understand that? Basically, on Amendment 1100 WB, you could just say on page 1, line 4 and line 11, and then you got it. All right, Representative Wismer, do you wish to move this amendment at this time?
I do.
Is there a second? Go ahead, Representative Wismer. You may discuss the amendment in the bill.
Thank you. Members of the House, as a member of the Committee of Government Operations and Audit Committee, I had occasion to review some contracts this summer, and I was trying to determine who some of the parties were involved in these contracts, and I couldn't do that. Earlier on this afternoon, I had distributed to you just a single sheet of paper. It says the House Bill 1100 and Representative Wismer on the front, but on the back, circled in pink on every one of your copies, is the signature line. And I don't know about you, but I have no idea whose name that is, and it's not written in to say whose name it is, unlike the next two lines where the state officers are identified in print. I contacted one of our favorite newsmen and asked him if he ran into this very often. where you could not tell who had signed the contract. And he said, yeah, I do, but I just call the department secretary. Well, I don't want to have to call the department secretary in order to find out who signed, who is a party to a contract with the state for goods or services. So I submitted a very simple bill to, and it was heard in House State Affairs
Smith Heels.
day before yesterday. And as I submitted it, I just made one change. The change was to say that any contract shall have the printed name of any person signing the contract. And there were two places that it had to be. I presented that bill in front of a few attorneys, or maybe they were all feeling particularly energetic that morning, but there were all sorts of other little things that needed to be corrected. And so now, if you will refer back to the amendment, you will see that instead of person, some parties felt that individual was the more correct term there. Then page 1, line 6 and 13, there was some concern that it was not stated that failure to comply with the requirement for a printed name under this section would void the contract, so we put in a specific sentence saying it would not void the contract. And finally, there are some obvious style and form differences among drafters, and I had to go back and forth, but we finally ended up deciding that the administration would prefer that "or a designee" be deleted from my bill as originally presented. So that's my explanation of both the amendment and the bill. I think it's a good open government policy, transparency, to be able to know who is contracting with our state government with the least amount of effort, and I would appreciate your affirmative vote on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Wismer. Further remarks? Representative Haugart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking to the amendment and the bill itself, the amendment's appropriate.
Permission granted.
Thank you. We did make some changes to the bill. It's appropriate that you be able to understand who has signed the bill, and I think in most cases it's probably evident, but as Representative Wismer indicated, at least on one example, it was not legible enough to even discern what was there, and I think the amendments take care of any concerns we had on our committee, so I would encourage support of the bill as amended.
Thank you, Representative Haugart. Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we are on the motion to amend 1100 WB as modified to includes page 1, line 4, and line 5 on the first line of the amendment, or line 11, excuse me. All those members in favor of said amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries. Now we are back on the bill as amended. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1100 as amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Allers votes aye. Representative Bruner. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 65, nays 1, and excused 4.
House Bill 1100 as amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Representative Quam moved that House Bill 1103 be deferred to Wednesday, January 24th, 2018, the 11th legislative day.
All in favor of the Quam motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. Now, I bet we're on House Bill 1029.
House Bill 1029, having had its second reading, is up for reconsideration and final passage.
Discussion. House Bill 1029. Representative Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment. It's
Okay, what's the number on that amendment?
1029 Favre Anderson, F.A.
Has it been distributed?
Yes, it has.
Do you wish to move it at this time?
I would like to move this amendment at this time.
Is there a second? Discussion on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, could I have latitude to discuss both the amendment and the bill? It'll be a shorter speech. Permission to speak on both the amendment and the bill.
Yeah, you bet. Granted.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank ladies and gentlemen of the House for giving us the opportunity to bring this bill back and to rehear it. And hopefully, I will be able to persuade the majority of you to agree that it's a good piece of legislation. The amendment's pretty simple. If you go to line 7, line 8, we're basically taking the amount of $3,000 and changing it to $2,500. And now the reason why I'm asking to talk to both is if you remember the debate on the bill, we've got businesses out there in South Dakota that want to be a self-insured work comp carrier. That means they're not buying their insurance, they're paying the claims themselves. In order for the state of South Dakota, which highly regulates workmen's compensation, in order for them to regulate this, they have to see if they're solvent, they have to go through their assets, their liabilities, and their loss ratios in order to determine that they're okay to be a self-insured. For years, 16 years I think it is now, or it's been a number of years, it's been $2,000 for the fee, which goes to the state, and immediately the state pays it to the actuary who does the study. And according to those that know, I'm not an actuary expert, I've been told it's a very, very good screaming deal for $2,000 to do this. The actuary is asking for $2,250. So what the bill says is the ability to go up. I've amended it to $2,500, but in rules they're stating up to $2,250, which is the agreement with the actuary. So the money will come through the state and go through to the actuary, so the state doesn't keep these dollars. It goes to the people doing the work, the vendor. So you can call it a fee, you can call it what you want. All I know is if we don't pass this, the state gets to pay the $250 extra. It comes out of the general fund, it comes from somewhere, but not from those that want to be a self-insured. Keep that in mind. Somebody's going to have to pay the $250. So if you want to say, I'm going to vote no against this, it's a fee, sure, we'll give it to the citizens of South Dakota as part of the general fund to pay the fee. The bill itself, when I talk about 13, these are the people. I'm going to let you know who the 13 are in South Dakota. It's just to make sure everybody understands. Avera Health, Cold Spring Granite Company, Dakota Granite Company, Federal Express, JELD-WEN, Coles Corporation, Mid-American Energy, Northwestern Energy, Otter Tail Power, Regional Health Incorporated, Smithfield Foods Incorporated, Target Corporation, and Tyson Foods. These are big operators. They can afford to invest their money, to save money on an insurance policy for workman's compensation to run their own self-insured program. But they have to be proved to be solvent through the state of South Dakota because the state of South Dakota under Chapter 65 highly regulates workman's compensation. Thus, we need to have the actuary do their job to determine that this is indeed a solvent corporation, that the liabilities and the assets and their loss ratios are in tune to allow them to continue to do business as a self-insured. I'm asking for your consideration, your reconsideration of this. It's pretty simple, pretty cut and dried. I ask you to support the amendment. Let's pass the bill and move it on to the Senate. Thank you.
Further remarks? What are we on? Yeah, we'll grant you the latitude to speak to the amendment in the bill, or yeah, maybe we should just get this thing amended and then debate the bill. How's that? Anyone want to talk on the amendment? Seeing none, all those, the question before the body is adoption of Amendment 1029 FA. All those members in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries. We're now on 1029 as amended. Further remarks? Representative Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to ask you to vote no on the bill, just like a lot of you did yesterday. We hear that these fees could come out of the general funds and all this, and we use that little scare tactic, which isn't always true. Because if we don't approve this, then are they going to ask for it out of general funds? Yeah, and we can tell them no. We have different options that can be at play here, and we're essentially, by voting no on this, we're telling the Department of Labor they got to go back and renegotiate, right? If we vote no on it, that price can be absorbed through the Department of Labor within their current budget. We could ask them to throw that few $1,000s out of their current budget to this, make them maybe be a little bit more efficient. Another option is to sit down with these 13 companies and have them develop a contract on them picking up the bill for the actuator specifically, but the actuator just reports directly to the state. So this bill in front of us is saying this: hey, inflation's going up, the cost of living's going up, let's just tack these prices on, let's keep business as usual, let's not actually make any changes within this House. I'm saying vote no on this bill, let's change directions, and let's actually make a difference. Let's change business as usual. Let's go to work for the consumer, even though these are big companies who quote unquote can afford it. Whenever you're looking at somebody else's budget, it's really simple to say, well, they can afford it. There are people who can look at us as individuals and say, well, this guy can afford it, this guy can afford it. And I don't think that's probably a proper form of government, I guess, for us to pick and choose who can afford things and who can't. Let's go to work. Let's change business as usual. Let's vote no. Thank you.
Representative Willitson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to take issue with the comments that the previous speaker made. A lot of what he said tain't necessarily so. The law says that in South Dakota, if you're a corporation and you want to self-insure for work comp, that you can do that by meeting the requirements of the law. The law requires that the Division of Insurance make sure that those corporations are capable of paying the claims. That's a little bit above their pay grade. And so what they've done is they've contracted with a third-party administrator to do those audits to make sure that these companies are meeting the law when they say that they want to self-insure. We've been getting a bargain from the third-party administrator. They haven't increased the fees for over 10 years. It's been at $2,000. The administrator came to the Division of Insurance and said, hey guys, we're going to have to bump up our fee. We're probably going to bump it up to $2,250. It's still a bargain. It's still a bargain. So all this bill does, again, is it says that those companies that want to be self-insured for work comp have to pay a fee so that we can cover the costs of the audit to make sure that they're solvent and that they can pay the claims for their employees. That's all it does. Now, it's a fee increase. That's true. Doesn't go into the general fund. It passes right through. If you're going to vote no on this, you need to be prepared to go to the LRC and get the work done to change the law to require the LRC to make sure these companies are solvent. I don't think that's a good idea either. This is a common sense bill. It makes sense to allow these companies to operate in South Dakota and run their own work comp coverage. It's something that, you know, is attractive to companies as they're looking for a place to move to. You know, it's a common sense bill. I'd encourage you to support it as it's amended. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further remarks. Representative Stevens.
I guess if I push the mic, it works better.
That's the same up here.
Yeah, technology. You know, I guess I'm going to tell you why I'm going to vote for this bill, and it really comes down to three different things. I really look at this, number one, as a consumer bill, because what these organizations do for anybody involved with workman's comp is very, very important to the process itself, and it really protects the people who are involved with workman's comp and who has the claims as well as the insurance companies themselves. And they really have to be very accurate in what they do, and this is a very specialized situation. So I really see this in somewhat as a consumer bill. You know, I also look at it from a taxpayer standpoint because they're the ones that are going to be getting the benefit from doing this. And I guess the third thing I say, look at is this, is at some points I think we're starting to micromanage all of our groups. Now, when did we ever think of the state government being in a position where we're giving it out to the highest bidder? I mean, nobody does that. And I think what this bill does is it says this, you know what, we're going to let the people who are experts in dealing with this situation go in there and negotiate to get the very best deal for the taxpayers. And so I think we're starting to micromanage these and say to our groups, well, they could do this and they could do that and they could do this and they could do that. And don't you think they already do that stuff already? And so to me, this is a no-nonsense bill. It gets right to the point. It protects the people that we're here to represent, and I'd ask you for a green vote.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Steinauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is really about good government. We do these audits to protect the public, and that's what this body is here to do. Without ensuring the financial wherewithal of these 13 companies, we put at risk the workers' comp pool and the workers, the health care and things that they need. If we certify somebody and allow them to do their own workers' comp without doing the due diligence and having an audit done, it's a risk that we shouldn't take. So how do we do it? Well, this is good government the way it's being done because it's being outsourced. It's not another FTE. We don't have enough work to do these audits to justify a very expensive auditor that's experienced in workers' comp and insurance. And so here we've got the government doing the right thing, outsourcing it, and we're nickel and diming them about, as I understand it, a contract that's going to expire, and they've signaled that they're going to want an increase. We don't know the increase exactly, so we grant authority to an agency to make a decision. I trust that they'll try to get the rate down as low as possible. So it's our responsibility to protect the public. This is good, efficient government. It beats hiring an auditor in-house.
Further remarks? Seeing no other further remarks, Representative Rounds for closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the House, for putting up with us for 2 days in a row on this. I'm going to ask you to consider what we're talking about here, where you've got 13 entities in South Dakota that have that choice. They have the choice of being a self-insured or purchasing workman's compensation insurance through the open market. They're making the decision, not the state, not us. They're making the decision to go through this route of the self-insured. The state needs to protect those employees. That's a responsibility we have sitting on this floor. We need to protect those employees by determining that, yes, they are solvent, they've got the assets, their loss ratio, et cetera, is sufficient, so these people will be covered should they're hurting the job. We are the ones, the state, if you want to change workman's compensation and get rid of it through South Dakota and make it like property casualty where there's very little regulation, so be it. The only opposition I heard today was, let's just close our eyes to it. It'll happen. Something will be taken care of. And what we'll end up doing is subsidizing these businesses. It's their choice. It's not our choice. It's their choice. $2,250 will be the price. They're putting it in rule. It's in the bill. We're going up $250 for an actuary to do a job which on the open market could probably be $2,500 to $3,000. We're still getting a very good deal. The money comes from the business on their choice, goes to the vendor who's doing the accounting, to doing the actuarial review. None of the money stays with the state. It goes directly from point A through point B to point C. It's pretty simple. We can sit back, do nothing, close our eyes to everything, and eventually the world will come down upon us. Or we can, good government, like I heard, take care of the responsibilities we have for our workers, for those businesses that wish to save money by being a self-insured. I ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1029 as amended. This is a 2/3 vote. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote. Representative Beal.
Personal privilege?
Granted.
Yes, I'd like to introduce my daughter right there. She's been here before. She's here tonight to visit me about a few things, and I just wanted to introduce Jessica.
Jessica, what's her last name, Arch?
Jessica Baumiller.
Jessica, nice to have you with us. How about you, Representative Ketwig?
Sure. Personal privilege?
Granted.
This week I've had the opportunity, and my son has had the opportunity to be here with me, and he'll be here through the rest of the week. This is Ty. He's my middle son. He's 10 years old. Actually turns 11 on Friday, so we'll miss his birthday. He was here last year for his birthday, but he gets a chance to stay with me all week, and we'll be around taking some pictures. He's got a big presentation to do when he gets back on how effective the South Dakota legislature is at their job. So he's going to be doing a big presentation for his class.
Well, let's welcome Ty. Ty, that's a good-looking It's a good-looking necktie you have on. Nice knot.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Ty, would you go pay a visit over to Representative Gosh for me? Show him what that necktie looks like. Figured you're still in medicine, so it's all right. Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 53, nays 13, and excused 4.
House Bill 1029 as amended, having received the 2/3 vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. Announcements. Representative Dennert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Capital Commission Bible study tonight, 8 p.m. at Perkins.
Open invitation.
To all legislators.
To all legislators. Very good. Representative Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I kind of wanted it on record. I had to loan a certain intern some money to buy your pop today. When will I be reimbursed? Thank you.
I don't think you asked enough questions. I don't think that was anyone getting a pop for me. All right, who else? Representative Allers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Appropriations will be meeting tomorrow. We'll be hearing from the Military Veterans Affairs and the Attorney General's office.
Very good. Representative Johns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Education will meet tomorrow, 7:45. We have 3 bills on the docket.
Representative Roden.
Thank you. House State Affairs tomorrow morning, 7:45.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you. The Black Hills Resilient Forest speakers are eagerly awaiting us to arrive 25 minutes ago in room 414.
Thank you. Representative Reed.
House Judiciary meets tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Anyone else? Representative Goodwin.
Catapult Caucus, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Representative Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Commerce and Energy Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. upstairs, and we've got a great bill on the docket. It's sponsored by the good representative from Minnehaha County. Looking forward to a fun day. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further announcements. Oh, wait a second. Representative Qualm.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whip groups in 10 minutes.
Whip groups in 10 minutes. Very good. Thank you. Representative Beal. Representative Beal. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries.